Hey everybody, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and today I'm going to be going over my February wrap-up and my March TBR. In February, I set out to read about 4 or 5 books with a handful of graphic novels. I wasn't sure how much time I'd be able to dedicate to reading, especially since it's a shorter month, and I ended up reading 7 books, as well as more graphic novels and comics than I anticipated. So it ended up being a good reading month. It started out with me saying that I read 7 books, a little misleading because I finished 7 books. This book I did start in January, and that's Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Obviously, it took me a while to read because of how thick it is, but I did finally finish this one at the beginning of February. This is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive, and it was the first one that I really struggled with. This was not my favorite Stormlight book. This is definitely not my favorite Sanderson book. It's probably pretty low on my list. It's still good, but as far as his work goes, definitely not his best output. There is a review of this up on the channel if you want my full thoughts, but that was my first book that I read this month. I followed that up with Legends and Lattes because I needed something to really decompress after this huge, long experience. And Legends of Lattes, I've been meaning to get to it for a while, and it just seemed like it was the opportunity, the right time to read that. Also, my hold at the library finally came in after months of waiting, so timing worked out great. And I really enjoyed Legends and Lattes. It's exactly as it's advertised. It's exactly what you've heard about on BookTube and Bookstagram and everything like that. It is low stakes. It's low stakes high fantasy. It is literally about the trials and tribulations of opening a coffee shop, but in a fantasy setting. It's very charming. It's not extremely stressful. It's just a fun little read, and I do recommend that one. Also have a review of that for my full thoughts on the page. After Legends and Lattes, I switched gears to horror, and I read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I read this in preparation for an event that I went to that actually, it was a conversation with Stephen Graham Jones and Paul Tremblay, the author of Cabin at the End of the World and Head Full of Ghosts. I have a video up on the channel of that event, like a vlog. That was a lot of fun, so check that out. I know this is a really, really beloved book. I see a lot of people who say it's one of their favorite recent horror books, particularly slashers. I thought it was just okay. I really had some issues with this book, particularly in the ending. I've got a full review of it on the page if you want more information, but this one didn't work for me as much. There was a lot of really good stuff in it, but there's also a lot of stuff in it that just did not click for me, and it was a bit sloppy, I'll say. I would say this is a sloppy book. I do have the sequel, Don't Fear the Reaper. I was not sure if I was going to get to that this month. I didn't. It'll maybe be in my March TBR. After that dip back into horror, I went back to fantasy. Specifically, I went back to Sanderson with Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is the first Kickstarter book. I had gotten it at the beginning of the month of February, and I was just dying to read it, but I kept having to delay it because I had to read some other stuff before that. I was really happy to get to this, and I absolutely loved this book. It is one of my favorite Sanderson books. I recommend this book to everybody. I think it's a great jumping on point for people who have never read any Cosmere books. It's really, I describe it as Kurt Vonnegut writing The Princess Bride, which is a very bizarre comparison, but if you read it and you know Vonnegut and you know The Princess Bride, you'll understand what I mean. So, absolutely love this one. Again, full review on the channel if you are interested. After that, I read my first ebook in forever because I got a Kindle. It's my first Kindle. I got the Kindle Paperwhite Signature, and I just wanted to test it out and play around with it, so I got a library book on there, and that book was Jailbird by Kurt Vonnegut. It's a Vonnegut that I had never read before. I've read a lot of his big hit books, but Jailbird had slipped by me. And I enjoyed Jailbird. It was really solid. I don't have a ton to say about it. I put up like a quick view on my channel of my thoughts of it. It's Vonnegut's Watergate book. It's about a guy who is just getting out of prison for his minor involvement in the Watergate scandal. And it's really just his life story and all the odd coincidences that have happened to him. It's really good. I mean, good Kurt Vonnegut is better than a lot of people's great, so I would recommend that one too. After Jailbird, I finally continued my Dune read. This is Children of Dune, the third book in the series. I was not a fan of this one. I really liked Dune Messiah a lot, and I thought Dune Messiah did a lot to really round out the character of Paul Atreides, and I really liked staying with him and spending time with him and seeing his growth. Paul is not in this book as much. He's in it, but it's mostly about some different characters, and I just didn't find them as interesting, and it was a bit of a slog to read, honestly. I have got Emperor of Dune on my shelf, and because I didn't enjoy this so much, I am not sure when that is going to actually come up on my TBR. I'm completely okay with delaying a little bit. As of recording this, I don't have a review of this up on the channel. I'm thinking of writing one though, so maybe one's coming in the future. And finally, to round out the month in terms of my prose books, this is a novella, and I'm technically not done with it yet, but I'm going to finish it today. I've only got a handful of pages left, and that's What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I actually read that story as well in preparation for this. So far, this is a really good retelling. I really am enjoying this one, and as long as it sticks the landing, I know it's blasphemous to say, but if this is good, you could probably just read this instead of The Fall of the House of Usher by Poe, which is a bit dense and hard to read in today's modern language. But yeah, really enjoying this one. Not sure if there will be a full review on the channel of this one. It'll depend on how much I have to say about it once it's over, but this will be my 7th book of the month. Okay, and really quickly, just going to go through the graphic novels and comics that I read this month. First up, as I planned, I read Volume 4 of The Department of Truth. I absolutely love this series, and this volume was great. If you don't know what this is about, it's about a world in which conspiracy theories come true if enough people believe in them. And the Department of Truth is the US government agency that is aware of this, and they're doing everything they can to keep those conspiracies from getting out of control. And it's a really interesting, fun series. I highly recommend it. It can be a bit of a challenge if you're not super versed in reading comics, because the art is a little bit abstract. I mean, it's not abstract's maybe not the right word. It's not a like box to box. It's not just like easy linear panels all the time. If you're not used to reading comic books, it can be a bit of a challenge. But if you are used to reading comic books, highly recommend this one. Next up, another graphic novel I planned to read and did was The Big Guy and Rusty the Robot by Frank Miller and Jeff Darrow. I had picked this one up just because of the Jeff Darrow artwork. He's absolutely incredible. He is an absolute magician with pen and ink. It's really unbelievable. And it's a really just wholesome story. I mean, it's about two robotic entities who were created by Japan and the US, who are teaming up to fight a giant like dinosaur from another dimension. The story is really, it's tangential. It's secondary to the incredible artwork. So definitely recommend this one if you are a big fan of great ink drawing. And finally, the last one that I'll highlight, I didn't read the entire thing, but I've been reading it slowly, a story at a time. It's Home to Stay, the complete Ray Bradbury EC Stories collection. I put up a video on this book, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it. But if you don't know the story about Ray Bradbury and his relationship to EC Comics, it's a really interesting one. check out my video for the full story. And this book is fantastic. I love that it's oversized. I love that it's all black and white, so you could really appreciate the artwork by some absolutely incredible artists. And if you're a Ray Bradbury fan, then I think this is a book that you absolutely have to have in your home. Okay, so that finishes up February, and we'll get into my March TBR now, which I didn't really think about too much before this video. So I've got my Kindle here with my Tress of the Emerald Sea sticker from the Kickstarter that I've put on the case. And I'm just gonna take a look. I have a trip coming up this week. I have to go on a work trip, so I'll probably be doing a lot of reading while I'm doing the commute down there to Washington, D.C. And what I plan to read on the train is Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. I've been meaning to get to that one for a long time. I keep hearing about it on horror bookstagram and stuff like that. So very optimistic. Hopefully I'll enjoy that one. It seems pretty short, so I'll probably finish that on the trip. And once I'm done with that, I think I will be finally ready to read Dead House Gates by Stephen Erickson, the second book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I am concerned that it's going to take me a while to read that one. It's longer than Gardens of the Moon, and I've heard it's when the story starts to get even more complex. So hopefully that's again just reputation and rumor. I didn't find Gardens of the Moon to be that challenging. I enjoyed it quite a bit actually. So hopefully Dead House Gates is more of the same. But I do anticipate finishing it in March. And once I do, I have a few different directions I can go. If I'm in the mood for another bit of a longer book, I do have Boy's Life by Robert McCammon that I plan to read. So I might get to that. Also, potentially we'll try to read Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones just to be caught up on that series. In there also, I'm going to try to squeeze in the novella Dawn Shard by Brandon Sanderson, because that is the final Cosmere book that I need to read to be caught up. So I think that's probably a pretty good TBR for a month. What was that, 5 books or so? So yeah. All right, yeah, let's see if we can do that. As far as comics and graphic novels, I went to a comic show the end of February, and I got just a huge stack of just random books, random comic books from there, from the dollar bins. So I'll probably just be reading through those steadily in March. So not like a single comic arc that I can tell you about or a single series. It's just going to be kind of all over the place. There is one series that I do plan on continuing though, and that is The Goon. This is the 3rd omnibus of The Goon. If you watched my top graphic novels that I read in 2022 video, you would know that I started reading this series last year and absolutely love it. I said that it has the potential to be a desert island book for me because it's so much fun and it covers so many genres, and it's just incredible cartooning. So I'm really excited to continue this series. As for channel updates and information, I did do reviews of basically every book that I showed today, so please check out those reviews. I did a video on the Roald Dahl censorship controversy, so check that out if you are interested. I did also post a video on the Stormlight Archive where I kind of break it down and I present it in a way where if you're not sure about the Stormlight Archive, if you've never read it before and you don't know if it's for you, that video is meant to help you make that decision. So check that out if you are considering dipping your toe into Stormlight. And probably the most fun video that I made last month was the Paul Tremblay, Stephen Graham Jones vlog video. That was really different for me, and I'm really happy with how it came out. So check that one out as well. But I think I'm going to wrap up there. I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now it is time to get back to reading.